And they're taking control. Who are? Control of what? Claims Yuval Noah Hirari in a recent BBC Hard Talk interview. Before we look at that, let's look at Yuval. This is some info from Wikipedia. Yuval Noah Hirari was born in 1976. He is an Israeli author, public intellectual, historian and professor in the Department of History at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He is the author of the popular science bestsellers Sapiens, A Brief History of Mankind, Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow, and 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. His writings examine free will, consciousness, intelligence, happiness and suffering. Hirari writes about a cognitive revolution that supposedly occurred roughly 70,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens supplanted the rival Neanderthals and other species of the genus Homo, developed language skills and structured societies, and ascended as apex predators, aided by the agricultural revolution and accelerated by the scientific revolution, which have allowed humans to approach near mastery over their environment. His books also examine the possible consequences of a futuristic biotechnological world in which intelligent biological organisms are surpassed by their own creations. He has said Homo sapiens, as we know them, will disappear in a century or so. So in 2015 and subsequently since then, Yuval has done a number of interviews with Daniel Kahneman. Who the bloody hell's Daniel Kahneman? Daniel Kahneman was born on March the 5th, 1934. He is an Israeli-American author, psychologist and economist, notable for his work on hedonic psychology, psychology of judgment and decision-making, as well as behavioural economics, for which he was awarded the 2002 Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences, shared with Vernon L. Smith. His empirical findings challenge the assumption of human rationality prevailing in modern economic theory. In 2015, The Economist listed him as the 7th most influential economist in the world. He served in the psychology department of the Israeli Defense Force and as an infantryman. One of his responsibilities was to evaluate candidates for officers' training school and to develop tests and measures for this purpose. Kahneman describes his military service as a very important period in his life. Okay, so it's easy to switch off when you hear the word economics and think it's all about making money. You probably didn't listen to 98% of what I just rambled on about, but let's pull it apart a little bit. It's quite important. So he probably is worried about making money, but I'm not 100% sure he's even got an economics education. Jason Fernando writes, Daniel Kahneman is a professor emeritus of psychology and public affairs at Princeton University, despite having reportedly never taken a course in economics. So we need to remember he's a psychologist first and foremost, who received his Nobel Prize for having integrated insights from psychological research into economic science, especially concerning human judgment and decision-making under uncertainty. Human judgment and decision-making under uncertainty. A quote from the website econlib.org says, Another bias Kahneman and Tversky found to be common in people's thinking is availability, whereby people judge probabilities based on how available examples are to them. So, for example, people overstate the risk from driving without a seatbelt if they personally know someone who was killed while driving without a seatbelt. Also, repetition of various stories in the news media, such as stories about children being killed by guns, causes people to overstate the risk of guns to children. Quotes by Kahneman include: a reliable way to make people believe in falsehoods is frequent repetition, because familiarity is not easily distinguished from truth. Authoritarian institutions or marketers have always known this fact. The Harvard Gazette quote him: how do you convince someone to do something they don't want to do? Like, for example, get vaccinated, reject prejudice, or accept your terms? You begin by asking why not instead of why. It's the best idea I've learned in psychology. Kahneman believes people are far more irrational than previously thought, and has brought forward new ways of thinking about human judgment, intuition, and decision-making. His work has influenced psychologists, economists, philosophers, and healthcare providers. His bio is on the World Economic Forum's website, as well as being labelled one of their agenda contributors. Alongside his videos and articles, one entitled, "Do Economists Underestimate the Impact of Social Factors on Behaviour?" Here's a cool little example of the behavioural economics concept that I found on Wiki. It's quite good, this. The behavioural economics concept of nudging people's behaviour and actions is often illustrated with this urinal with a housefly image embossed in the enamel. The image nudges users into improving their aim, which lowers cleaning costs. Change the behaviour, economies do better, do worse. You know what I mean. But it's a you can get lost in the word economics and you just think, oh, boring numbers and fucking money and shit. The important part is the behavioural part of that, the psychology behind what makes us make decisions. Especially, he got his Nobel Prize in how do we make decisions in uncertainty. That's where he got his Nobel Prize from, in 2002. This is mental. It's literally in plain sight. It's literally in plain sight. It's written all over the website. It's out there to be found. You don't just have to trust a therapy theorist like me. But who goes on those websites and looks at that and researches? Well, not me. I still knew it, but I didn't actually go and do the legwork. But I'm starting to, and I had a thought when I was in the kitchen earlier, if a lazy cow like me is actually starting to not just listen, but research, dissect, and try and get it, what I find, over to you, thousands of other people must be as well. It can't just be me that's stopping being a consumer of information and is trying to put out some, relevant information. And I came up with a funny thing. Instead of the 100th monkey, I thought I would call myself the 100th numpty. I thought that was quite good. So when the 100th numpty starts doing some research, maybe everybody else will. I don't mean research by just listening to other numpties, but going onto these websites. And literally, by me doing that, and it bloody takes hours, mind. You wouldn't believe how long just one video takes. But by looking it up, and then you go down that rabbit hole, then down that rabbit hole, then you go over there, and then you've got to condense it all, and then you start writing it up, and then you start typing it up, and then you look up, it sort of retains it to your brain a bit more as well. Because I'm very much one for listening to things for hours on end, and then I come away with the essence of it rather than any facts or remembering any of the details. I come away with the essence of the world's fucked, we're run by elites, the end. I don't actually come away with names and facts and remember why I think that. But by doing this, I'm actually starting to retain the information a bit more. Maybe it's good for my brain. So the 100th numpty's woken up. Right. So we've got Yuval Noah Hirari and Daniel Kahneman. And they had a little chat with each other in 2015. Okay. So my little brain started to put 2 and 2 together. It probably came up with 32. But Kahneman used to develop tests and measures to evaluate candidates for officers training school. So he used to come up with, like, you know, like those psychology tests now that they do. I think they even do them, like, do this psychology test, psychological profiling to get into the police. No, you're not psycho enough. You care a bit too much about things and people in life. You won't do. We need robots. So he kind of, what they're talking about is he came up with like profiling tests and measures to evaluate the candidates that would be good to go into officers training school, because you want a certain person to go into an officers training school, don't you? Somebody that's a bit of a psycho that likes bossing people about and doesn't lose any sleep about millions of people being carpet bombed. So he came up with the tests to evaluate and get those people. So now he's having a little chat with Hirari in 2015, and Hirari literally looks like a 15-year-old kid that should have green snot coming out of his nose. He looks like stuff that comes out of his mouth is all the stuff that the weffers would be literally soiling their pants for. So he has an interview with Hirari in 2015. It's like, old man, it's disgusting to watch. It's just like this old man, just looks like a big old perv. It's gross. And it does seem to be before Hirari's become the golden boy, you know, before he's Schwab's golden boy. It's almost as if he's this young guy who's got all these ideas and thoughts, and then meets this absolute revolting monster, and then all of a sudden he becomes this, like, he's everywhere sort of thing. So you can literally see this old guy drooling in this interview in 2015 when Hirari's saying things like, the problem in the coming decades will be what to do with all these useless people. I think he got his words wrong. I think he meant to say eaters. All these useless eaters. He said people. He wasn't quite, he was still a bit naive and new and young to the game. He still thought we were people back then. So in this 2015 interview, Hirari famously says, the way in which we will find meaning in a life when we are basically meaningless and worthless will be through a combination of drugs and computer games.
The biggest question maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades will be what to do with all these useless people. The problem is more boredom and what to do with them, and how will they find some sense of meaning in life when they are basically meaningless, worthless. My best guess at present is a combination of drugs and computer games.
Because they won't need the army as well. We won't need the army. We won't need this. We won't need workers. We won't need any machine people. We don't need anything like that. So our life will be meaningless and we'll be useless people. And the only way we'll find meaning is through computer games and drugs. Yeah. That was in 2015. Move it on a little bit when he gives this little speech. He actually says something like, the only way we'll find meaning is through drugs and computer pornography. So he's moved on a little bit from there. Yeah. He mentions Marx about 25 times in the interview. He talks about Japan having virtual spouses and not leaving their houses. I didn't know that rhymed until I just said it, and I'm delighted. I'm absolutely delighted that that rhymed. He talks about Japan having... Now I've ruined it, look. Trying to be funny with it. Ruined it. Virtual spouses not leaving their houses, who just live through their computer. He mentions that people won't need families as the state will basically provide for them, so they'll become isolated and alienated, and they'll just adapt to that. The new product after the second industrial revolution will be humans producing bodies and minds. That's horrible, isn't it? I mean, don't even bear thinking about it. So in a nutshell, he says the ultra rich are currently, and don't forget this was nearly 10 years ago, busying themselves with the problem of death. They see it as a technical problem that can be resolved, not a metaphysical one. You know, religion and spirituality, you know, this is a material world, and death is a technical problem which can be solved. That death used to be the great leveller. The poor would take solace in the fact that everyone, good, bad, rich, old, would all eventually succumb to the same fate. Well, not anymore, apparently. Hirari says in the future, not even that far in the future, the rich will be exempt from death. To use his words, the masses don't stand much of a chance. He says it as it is. I don't know if he's polished himself up a little bit since then. He's saying this in 2015 to this old drooling troll man, monster, blob. So I ask, was Daniel Kahneman an influential person in elevating Hirari to his godlike status now? So was he met him 10 years ago? Did he introduce him to his WEF buddies? And I don't know. I could be completely wrong. He could have been born into that lifestyle. I have no idea. I've only been researching it for like 10 hours. It's just not very long. My God. So, his godlike status now, Hirari's. So he's been in Time magazine, he does TED Talks, he's been on the top of the bestsellers list with his books. Some people say he's an advisor to the WEF, in particular Klaus Schwab. I can't call him anything else but that now because that's what Jason Burmis calls him and I like it. Klaus Schwab. So I can't find that he's the advisor to Klaus Schwab. People think he is, but he is all over the WEF forum as well, you know. And then there was this. I don't know if I'm looking the right way. Then there was this. I think that's better. I think that's the right way. This, probably there, is a picture of Yuval at Lisbon Airport in May of 2023. This year, when the Bilderberg conference was going on in the Pestana Palace, Portugal. However, he wasn't on the guest list. He was just on holiday, same day. So when did that go on? That was this year. It was between the 18th and the 21st of May in Portugal. He's at the airport. Wasn't on the guest list, so didn't have to be. We didn't know about it. So is he such an important player that they didn't want anyone to know he was invited? Did he gate crash? Did he get a part-time job as a waiter? It's probably all just a massive coincidence, so it's probably nothing to worry about. He was just on holiday in Portugal the same day as Bilderberg. Dearests, cast your mind back to they're already here and are taking control. Well, it would seem Mr. Hirari has got something to say about aliens. In an interview with BBC's Hard Talk programme this September, he likens AI to an alien invasion. Hirari reminds us that up until this point, humans have more or less been shaped by the experiences and musings of other humans, in the forms of fairy tales, art, music, mythologies, etc. He wonders how humans will develop in a world that will predominantly be shaped by AI. He says it is an alien, non-human intelligence that will create our culture going forward. What will it be like for a human to grow up in an alien culture? His words. Hirari asks us to imagine an invading fleet of highly intelligent beings coming to our planet in 5 years. Very specific. 5 years, apparently. With cures for cancers, solutions for climate change. His words. Maybe they'll be good for us, who knows? His actual words. He dramatically concludes we will be very concerned about losing control. So we're going to lose control to these aliens. And this invasion fleet is indeed on the way from California, China, the laboratories. They are already here and they're taking control. So apparently they're taking control of the financial system and the cultural system and the world. Dramatic. Hold on. Hold on. I spotted something in there that I believe was an accident. I do not for 1 minute think he meant to say this bit.
This is not the kind of, clear-cut destructive scenario. We don't know.
I think Mr. Yuval Noah Hirari is going to get a smacked bottom from Daddy Nutschwab and sent to bed with no supper after this.
This is not the kind of, clear-cut destructive scenario. We don't know.
He said, this is not the kind of clear-cut destructive scenario. We don't know. He didn't finish his sentence. I believe he was going to say something like, this is not the kind of clear-cut destructive scenario that you see in an alien invasion film. Spaceships coming down to Earth with ray guns, etc. I think that's where he was going with that sentence. So what stopped him? Why didn't he finish that sentence? Why did he say, we don't know? He was using aliens and invasions as a metaphor for AI. He clearly knows he isn't talking about a nuts and bolts space boots on the White House lawn scenario. So what doesn't he know? Or more to the point, what does he know? What did he learn at Bilderberg this year? And I'm not saying he knows an alien invasion could be a real scenario. If this were the case, there's no way they'd tell a little twerp like that. I'm telling you. I'm saying he knows it's not off the table to initiate the fake alien invasion that we've all heard about. Your Project Bluebeam scenario. If there was such a thing as a real invasion, there might be. And they might know about it. He don't know about it. He does know that there's some blueprints for Bluebeam. I've done it again. Natural. I think he knows about that scenario. And I think he feels that he could have fucked it up a little bit with what he just said, so he had to shut himself up. So I think his overconfident, rabbity little mouth ran away with itself. He wanted us to hear the words alien, invasion, they're already here. Don't forget who his mate is. The expert who got you to piss on a fly. Okay? But he did not want you to hear him say that an actual invasion is not on the cards, because he's been told it could be. And if that day comes, us useless eaters, I mean people, had better not be under any illusions that it is anything but what we've told it's been. There's got to be no doubt that we believe that the alien invasion is real. And he accidentally said that it wasn't, and then completely shut himself up. Let's watch it again.
This is not the kind of, clear-cut destructive scenario. We don't know.
Don't trust him. Let's listen to some more of his nonsense.
I don't think that the masses, even if they somehow organize themselves, stand much of a chance.
Now there is an alien intelligence, a non-human intelligence, which will increasingly create more and more of the stories, the music, the images, even the mythologies and ideologies. What would it mean to grow up, to be a human in a world, inside an alien culture, which increasingly shapes me and everybody else around me? This is not the kind of, clear-cut destructive scenario. We don't know.